Hey Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How you doing? It looks pretty warm and sunny there in California. Before we dive into the particular wine that we brought you here to talk about, I want to give our audience a little bit more background on you and how you kind of got into the wine industry.
I didn't really get into wine until I graduated and I started working in the field, and I worked for Tyler Winery, and that was like where I got introduced to really good wine, and that kind of got me hooked into wanting to make it a career, and like kind of seeing how he started his operation and got his thing going. And that's like really where it started, I would say.
You've got a background not only in the winemaking side, sort of hands-on in the winery, but you've got a background in working with vines, and now you also have a number of vineyards that you work yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah. So yeah, right now we just lease two different vineyards in the Santa Cruz Mountains that we farm, and then we work with a ton of different growers, like all over the Central Coast, from Santa Barbara to San Benito County. All the vineyards are farmed organic, and the stuff that we have in Santa Cruz is all dry farmed, so there's no irrigation used, and we don't till anything.
Well, I know you also had a pretty challenging harvest this year.
Hmm.
I'm sure you don't want to rehash it in vivid detail, but
Oh, it's
little,
not bad.
yeah.
Yeah, no, part of farming is taking the losses, so we the only loss we had was we didn't make any Pinot in 2020. So either from Monterey or from Santa Cruz because of smoke issues. So the Monterey Pinot, we ended up still picking some of that, and that we turned into sparkling, and we blended that into our Albarino. So we picked it early and pressed it pretty light, and it didn't have any signs of smoke issues. So we were able to blend it in with the Albarino, and it just added acidity, which was perfect. And then the Santa Cruz stuff we picked just super ripe at the end of the year because we knew it had really bad smoke issues. So that we ended up distilling last week, and now we have like 20 gallons of brandy.
Oh,
It's pretty high octane.
uh-huh.
So we'll just have that just for our own use, basically, but it'll be like a lifetime supply of brandy. So those were the two big losses.
Mhm.
In fact, what's kind of interesting is like we made Chardonnay for the first time from our Santa Cruz Mountain Pinot vineyard. We previously just like leased that to a colleague of mine who made it, and the Chardonnay is totally fine. So like white grapes are just a lot less susceptible, and Chardonnay has like really waxy cuticle, like for skin, and I guess it doesn't absorb as much smoke, but the Chardonnay is like totally fine, which is kind of crazy to me. And the Pinot was so screwed up.
But you've also made a name for yourself with a grape that many people don't associate with California. You make a number of different Rieslings
Uh
from
huh.
different vineyards, and at least to my palate, I see these Rieslings as standing out from a lot of the other Rieslings coming from California. Um, they're often bone dry, really full bodied. Uh, you like that grape a lot, I would guess, but why do you like working with Riesling?
It's like a Swiss Army knife of grapes. You can do like anything with it. You can make rosé with it. You can make reds better with it. You can make epic white wine. You can make epic sweet wine. You can make awesome sparkling wine. It's like what else like does all those things, and does them all like really well. There's no other variety that has the same potential to be so reliably inexpensive for how high quality of wines it make. Like, you know, I love to use Chardonnay, like to shit on Chardonnay just because it's so overgrown in California. It's the most widely grown grape. Um, and like in the same vineyard, typically like Riesling outperforms Chardonnay in terms of yield, in terms of acid, in terms of flavor. I'm talking about in California.
So the wine in particular that we wanted to talk to you about today is one we're featuring this month. and it is the Sturm Zinfandel from the Wurz vineyard. So can you tell me a little bit about, what it's like to work with Zinfandel, and maybe what it's specifically like to work with Zin from the Wurz vineyard?
Yeah. Zinfandel, like I've only worked with it from Wurs for myself, and the neighboring Enns Vineyard. And then like previously, like only one other winery, like my first internship when I was still in college. But it's a finicky grape. It's a super uneven ripener, and it's really hard to determine uh, the ideal time to pick. Even at high sugar, like you still have a lot of green berries, because it's just so uneven. Like it makes it fickle to grow. Like if you're a lot of people will like thin it out or like shape the clusters to take off like parts of it so it'll ripen more even.
These Zinfandel vines are pretty old from Wurz, yeah?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they were planted in 1903, at least part of it. And then there was another block planted in the 20s, and I think there was another block planted in the 60s, like across the river. So we have, and we use a little bit of all of that. So it's, I would say it's mostly older vine stuff, and then the last little bit we just ferment separately, and that doesn't always like make it in the finished Zin. So we'll pick like over 2 days, and usually we get like 3.5 tons, and we just it's all whole cluster, um, fermented in redwood. So it spends like 10-ish days in the fermenter. I think, yeah, part of the uniqueness is like the vineyard does have Riesling, and it's like I think it makes a better Zin to blend it in, or even co-ferment, which is like what we did in 2020.
Mhm. And that's a pretty common practice with Zinfandel, really, if you look at history, to not only be making a straight Zinfandel, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
a mixed vineyard of a lot of different grapes, all being co-fermented. And it's not uncommon that you would have seen some white grapes at times,
yeah.
right? Maybe not always Riesling, but
Well, exactly. I mean, there's Cabernet Pfeffer interplanted in the same block, and we pick that as well. Um, and also there's like Mission, there's Muscat, and a little bit of that ends up in the Zinfandel as well, like naturally. It just and that's pretty common with the old vineyards that still exist. There might a lot of people have like each region has like its kind of specialty. Like some will have Alicante Boucher, Carignan, Mataro interplanted in the Zin, and like Muscat. That's like a common thing in like Contra Costa. You know, it's like you can kind of like link the area to that like specific kind of mix. Because a lot of neighbors would just get plant material from each other and kind of plant the same things for the same reasons. It's a pretty misunderstood grape, and like I still don't really know what I'm doing with it, to be honest. It's like, yeah, I would say all my reds for that matter. Like it's such a work in progress because we're using pretty archaic gear to make the wine now on purpose, and it's trying to see what some of these old California flavors are, basically using the redwood and maybe, yeah, trying to do things a little bit more traditionally.
hey Ryan, thanks so much for chatting with us and taking the time.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see your face again.
Yeah, been a while.
Yeah, totally.